What if the woman you abandoned for being poor came back wealthier than you could ever dream? What if the same woman who once packed your lunch, prayed over your failures, and cleaned hotel floors just to pay your debts, walked into your boardroom years later wearing power like perfume, her name echoing louder than yours ever did? Would you recognize her? Would you regret? Would you finally understand what real wealth looks like? Because tonight, in the heart of Lagos, a man is about to learn that lesson the hard way. The glass walls of the boardroom reflected Lagos like a mirror. Towers of ambition piercing the sky, traffic choking the streets below. The city that ate dreams and spat out survivors. Inside, leather chairs circled a table long enough to seat 20. But only one man sat there now. Sweat gathering at his collar despite the air conditioning's hum. Desmond adjusted his tie for the third time. His hands betrayed him, trembling slightly as cameras flashed outside the door. Journalists, investors, vultures waiting to document his final fall or miraculous resurrection. The acquisition meeting was supposed to be routine. Sign papers, shake hands, let the new owners pretend they cared about his vision before gutting everything he'd built. His assistant whispered something about the investors arriving. He nodded without hearing. The doors opened. She walked in first. Time didn't stop. It shattered. Every fragment of his composure scattered across the polished floor as his ex-wife, Zara, entered the room with the kind of presence that made expensive suits look cheap by comparison. Tailored navy blazer. Gold watch that cost more than his car. Hair pulled back in a way that said she had nothing to prove and everything to protect. Their eyes met. Held. The room seemed to hold its breath with them. "It's been a long time, Mr. Desmond." Her voice hadn't changed, still soft, still dangerous in its gentleness. But everything else had. The woman who used to apologize for taking up space now commanded it. The woman he'd thrown away now owned the room he sat in. And possibly, no, definitely, owned him. The moment stretched. Cameras flashed through the glass. Someone cleared their throat. But Desmond couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at the ghost of his biggest mistake wearing a billion-dollar smile. 7 years earlier, Lagos looked different through their eyes. Smaller, brighter, full of possibilities that seemed close enough to touch. Their apartment had peeling paint and a tap that sang at night. But Zara made it feel like a palace with second-hand curtains and a smile that forgave the roaches. Desmond worked 16-hour days then, building his logistics startup from a laptop that overheated in the Lagos heat. She worked too, teaching at a primary school, her salary keeping them fed while his vision consumed everything else. "You're going to change everything," she told him one night, massaging his shoulders as he stared at spreadsheets that made no sense. "I can feel it." "We're going to change everything," he corrected, kissing her hand. "None of this works without you," she laughed. "I just make sure you eat and don't die of exhaustion." Exactly. Critical business functions. Those were the nights when love felt like oxygen, necessary, invisible, infinite, when her faith in him weighed more than any investor's check. When he looked at her and saw not what she lacked, but what she gave freely. Belief, sacrifice, presence. The company grew. Slowly, then suddenly. Contracts came. Money followed. Desmond moved the office from their bedroom to a real space in Victoria Island. He bought a car, then a better one. Their apartment upgraded to a flat with a view, then a house. With each step up, something subtle shifted. The way he introduced her at events, "This is Zara," instead of "This is my wife." The way he checked his watch during her stories. The way his friends started talking about potential and image and positioning for the next level. You should consider upgrading your wardrobe, one investor's wife told her at a cocktail party, eyes scanning Zara's simple dress with surgical precision. Presentation matters in this circle. Desmond said nothing, just sipped his drink and looked away. Zara noticed, she always noticed, the silences that used to be comfortable now felt like assessments she was failing. The touches that used to linger now seemed transactional. The man who once held her like she was precious now held her like she was evidence of where he'd come from. And he was very eager to forget. I got into the executive business program, she told him one evening, voice bright with hope. It's in the evenings, so it won't interfere with work. I thought maybe I could help more with the business side of things. He barely looked up from his phone. That's nice, Desmond. Did you hear what I said? Yeah, business program. That's great, babe. His thumbs kept moving, typing something urgent to someone more important. She stared at him. This stranger, wearing her husband's face. When did you stop seeing me? That got his attention. What? When did I become invisible to you? Zara, don't start. I'm tired. You're always tired, except when you're with them, your investors, your friends, your new world. Her voice cracked despite her efforts. I'm still in your old world, aren't I? The embarrassing chapter before success. He stood abruptly. That's not fair. Everything I built for us. No, you built it for you. I was just the ladder you climbed. The argument ended like they all did now, with him leaving, her crying, and the distance between them growing wider than any Lagos traffic jam. But she stayed. Because love, even when it's not returned, doesn't switch off like a light. It dims slowly, painfully, like a candle burning down to nothing. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Desmond was hosting potential investors at an upscale restaurant in Ikoyi, the kind where the waiters spoke in hushed tones and the menu had no prices, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. His business was expanding into West African logistics networks. These men, 3 of them, Lagos elite with old money and older attitudes, could write a check that would triple his valuation. He needed them. He needed this. Midway through dessert, as Desmond pitched his 5-year vision with rehearsed passion, one of the investors' eyes drifted to the entrance, then widened. Isn't that your wife? Desmond turned, froze. Zara stood near the kitchen entrance in a hotel cleaning uniform, holding a mop bucket. She hadn't seen him yet. Her face was tired but determined, the same expression she wore when she used to stay up late, helping him with his business plan. The same expression she wore when she believed in impossible things. Your wife's a cleaner? The investor's voice carried. People turned. Whispers multiplied. Desmond's face burned, not with shame for her situation, but shame for himself, for being seen, for his carefully constructed image cracking like cheap porcelain. Zara finally noticed him. Their eyes met across the restaurant. Her expression shifted from surprise to understanding to something worse, pity. She mouthed, I can explain. But he was already moving, not toward her, away. I need to take a call, he muttered to the investors, walking out the side exit before the situation could contaminate his deal further. He waited in his car, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. When she finally emerged an hour later, still in uniform, he called her. Get in. She hesitated, then slid into the passenger seat. The leather seemed to accuse her, too clean for someone who smelled of industrial soap and floor wax. Explain. One word. Cold as midnight air conditioning. The business program costs money. You said we needed to be careful with expenses, so I didn't want to ask. I took a part-time night shift at the hotel, 4 nights a week. It's good money, and no one we know goes there, so I thought, you thought wrong. Desmond, Do you have any idea what you just cost me? Those investors are probably laughing right now, talking about how I can't even provide for my wife properly, how I'm still bush boy playing dress up in designer suits. Her voice came out quiet, dangerous. I was trying to help. Help? You embarrassed me. You made me look like a failure in front of people whose respect I've spent years earning. He turned to her, and his eyes held something she'd never seen before. Contempt. I don't need a charity wife, Zara. I need a partner who understands what we're building, what image we need to project. Image. She repeated the word like she was tasting poison. Is that what I am now? A branding problem? Don't twist my words. Then say what you mean, Desmond. Say you're ashamed of me. Say you wish you'd married one of those polished women who know which fork to use and can talk about European vacations. Say you want someone who looks good on your arm instead of someone who believed in you when you had nothing. The silence in the car was deafening. Maybe, he said, finally, slowly, maybe we've outgrown each other. She turned to face him fully, tears streaming down her face, but her voice steady. You've outgrown me. I've always been exactly who I am. You're the one who changed. People grow. Situations change. You can't expect everything to stay the same. I expected you to stay kind. I expected you to remember where you came from. I expected... Her voice broke. I expected you to love me the way I still love you. He said nothing. The silence was answer enough. She opened the car door, stepped out into the Lagos night, turned back one last time. You'll understand someday what real wealth is, Desmond. I hope when you do, it's not too late. She walked away. He let her. And when the divorce papers came 3 weeks later, he signed them without hesitation, telling himself he felt relieved. He felt nothing but empty. 2 years bled into the Lagos skyline like watercolors in rain. Desmond's company, Desmond Group, as he'd ambitiously rebranded it, was hemorrhaging money. The expansion into West Africa had been overly aggressive. The investors he'd impressed that night had turned out to be fair-weather friends, their checks conditional on growth that never materialized. Worse, his CFO had been embezzling for 18 months, creating a paper empire that looked solid until you touched it and everything crumbled. Lawsuits, debt, suppliers demanding payment, employees jumping ship like rats sensing water rising. He sat in his office, still expensive, still decorated with symbols of success, and drank whiskey at 2 in the afternoon. His mother called every day now with the same script. You need to remarry. Find a woman with family money, connections. This pride of yours will kill you. I'm handling it, Mom. You're drowning. Everyone can see it except you. Why did you divorce that girl anyway? Zara, she was good for you. We weren't compatible anymore. Compatible? His mother kissed her teeth, the Igbo sound of disapproval that needed no translation. You mean she wasn't rich enough for your new life? Now look at you, alone, broke, pride in a bad thing, my son. She wasn't wrong, but admitting it felt like swallowing glass. Meanwhile, across Lagos, in a cramped studio apartment in Yaba that smelled of ambition and instant noodles, Zara was building something quietly revolutionary. After the divorce, she'd taken her small severance from the school, added her savings from those hotel cleaning shifts Desmond had scorned, and invested everything into a fintech startup accelerator program. No fanfare, no announcements, just her, a laptop, and an idea that wouldn't let her sleep. Mobile payments in Africa were growing, but they were fragmented, complicated, built for cities, not for the market women in Oshodi or the farmers in Ogun State. What if someone built a payment system so simple, so accessible that your grandmother could use it? AI-driven, offline capable, inclusive. She called it Aurora Pay. The first year was brutal. Rejection after rejection. Investors who smiled politely and said, "Maybe circle back when you have traction." Men who asked, "Where's the CEO?" when she introduced herself as the founder. Days when her bank account hit double digits and she considered giving up. But she'd already lost everything once. Fear of failure had nothing left to take. She worked night shifts coding, day shifts pitching, weekends studying AI models and payment infrastructure. She assembled a small team, brilliant misfits like her who believed in building something meaningful over something merely profitable. The contrast was cinematic in its cruelty. Desmond drowning in aged whiskey and regret, surrounded by expensive things that meant nothing. Zara thriving on instant coffee and purpose, surrounded by nothing but determination. One night, while debugging code at 3 a.m., her co-founder, a young developer named Chidi, asked her, "Why do you work like someone's chasing you?" She paused, smiled sadly. "Because someone is. The person I used to be. I'm running from her and toward who I'm supposed to become." Heavy, necessary. 6 months later, Aurora Pay launched. Small, quiet, just in 5 Lagos markets. Within 3 months, they had 50,000 users. Word spread like wildfire through Lagos traffic. Market women told market women. Drivers told other drivers. The app that treated you like you mattered, regardless of how much money you had. Silicon Valley noticed. An article in TechCrunch. African fintech startup solving payments for the last mile. Funding rounds followed. Series A, Series B. Each one validating not just the business, but her. The woman they'd overlooked. The charity wife. The embarrassment. Zara didn't gloat. She barely celebrated. She just kept building. By year 2, Aurora Pay Africa processed more mobile transactions than any indigenous platform on the continent. Zara was invited to global tech summits, featured in Forbes Africa, 30 Under 35, interviewed on CNN about financial inclusion. She sat in those interviews with quiet confidence, no arrogance, no bitterness, just a woman who'd turned pain into purpose. "What drives you?" an interviewer asked. She considered the question carefully. "I was once in a position where the world measured my worth by what I lacked instead of what I offered. I build for people in that position so they never feel invisible again." The interviewer leaned forward. "And your ex-husband? There are rumors his company is struggling. Do you follow his situation?" Zara's expression didn't change. "I wish him well, but I'm too busy building my future to dwell on my past." Professional, gracious. The interview went viral. What she didn't say, what she couldn't say, was that she'd been following Desmond's collapse with something more complicated than satisfaction. Not quite pity, not quite vindication, something that felt like grief for who they both used to be. When her acquisition team approached her about Desmond Group, a struggling logistics company with good infrastructure but terrible management, ripe for integration into Aurora Pay's distribution network, she sat with the proposal for 3 days. "Are you sure about this?" Chidi asked. "Given your history." "It's the right business move," she said firmly. "Personal history doesn't matter." But her hands shook when she signed the letter of intent. The news broke on a Tuesday evening. Headlines screamed across Lagos media. Aurora Pay to acquire Desmond Group in multi-million-dollar deal. Social media exploded. Think pieces written. The narrative too perfect to resist. Ex-wife returns to save, or was it destroy, ex-husband's empire. Desmond saw it first on Twitter. He was in his office going through bankruptcy projections when his phone started buzzing, message after message, some sympathetic, most mocking. "Boss, have you seen this?" His assistant's voice was careful, terrified. He clicked the link, read the headline. read it again. His brain refused to process the words. Zara, billionaire, acquiring his company, impossible. She'd been a school teacher, a cleaner he'd been ashamed of. Now she was, what? How? He scrolled through her company's history with shaking hands. Aurora Pay, founded 3 years ago, massive growth, Series C funding, valuation in the hundreds of millions, CEO and founder Zara Okafor. She'd kept her maiden name. Or maybe he'd been so insignificant she never even took his. The thought twisted in his gut like a knife. His phone rang. His mother. Did you see? Yes. That girl you divorced for being poor is now buying your company. I'm aware, Mom. This is God. God is showing you something. God or irony. Hard to tell the difference. Don't joke. What are you going to do? He had no answer. For the first time in years, Desmond felt truly helpless. Not because he was broke. He'd faced that reality for months. But because the woman whose spirit he'd broken had rebuilt herself into something he couldn't comprehend. And now she held his fate in her hands. The question that haunted him. Would she crush him the way he'd crushed her? Did he deserve mercy? The second question hurt more. If their positions were reversed, would he have shown her any? The boardroom meeting was scheduled for Friday. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to figure out how to face the woman he'd thrown away like garbage. 3 days to confront the man he'd become. Friday arrived dressed in Lagos rain, the kind that turned Victoria Island into temporary rivers and made everyone late for everything, except Zara. She arrived exactly on time, stepping from a black SUV that cost more than Desmond's annual revenue. The media was ready. Cameras, microphones, journalists shouting questions she ignored with a smile that gave nothing away. Her team flanked her, lawyers, advisors, all looking expensive and competent. She looked calm, prepared, like she'd rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times. Inside the building, Desmond's building, or what was left of it, security cleared a path. Employees whispered. Everyone knew. Impossible not to. The ex-wife. The billionaire. The woman whose story was already becoming Lagos legend. Desmond waited in the boardroom, surrounded by his remaining board members, 3 of them, all that was left after the exodus. They looked at him with something between pity and resentment. He'd led them here, to this humiliation. Remember, his lawyer whispered, be professional. Don't make it personal. Yeah, the acquisition terms are fair, all things considered. We have no leverage to negotiate. No leverage. 2 words that summarized his entire existence now. The doors opened. Zara entered first. And God, she was devastating. Not because of the designer clothes or the obvious wealth, but because of the way she carried herself, like someone who'd walked through fire and emerged as steel. Her eyes swept the room, landed on him, held for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Gentlemen, she said, her voice filling the space effortlessly, thank you for making time. She sat. Her team sat. Papers rustled. Someone started going through acquisition terms, post-merger structure, transition timelines. Desmond heard none of it. He was trapped in her orbit, 7 years of regret choking him, drowning him, making it impossible to breathe. She barely looked at him. Professional, detached, like he was just another business obstacle to overcome. Somehow that hurt most of all. Mr. Desmond, do you have any questions about the restructuring plan? He blinked. Everyone was looking at him. No. It seems comprehensive. Good. Zara flipped through her documents. I want to be clear about our intentions here. We're not here to destroy your legacy. We're here to protect what's left of it. Protect it? The words escaped before he could stop them. Or erase my name from it. She finally looked at him fully. Really looked. Your name stopped meaning something the moment you stopped honoring the people who built this company with you. The workers you haven't paid in 3 months. The suppliers you've ghosted. The partners you've abandoned. I'm not erasing anything. I'm correcting years of neglect. The room went silent. His board members stared at their papers. We treated people as disposable, she continued, voice soft but cutting. And we learned that disposable people have long memories and longer reach. Didn't we? The we. Inclusive. Generous. She could have said you. Could have twisted the knife. Instead, she shared the blame somehow, even though they both knew the truth. Zara, he started, not knowing how to finish. The acquisition will close Monday, she said, businesslike again. My team will handle the transition. You're welcome to stay on in an advisory capacity for 6 months, or we can arrange a clean separation with full severance. Your choice. That's it? His voice cracked embarrassingly. That's it? What else should there be? Everything. Anger. Vindication. Cruelty. Something that acknowledged the magnitude of their history. But she sat there like he was a stranger. Like they hadn't built dreams together. Like he hadn't broken her heart and she hadn't just bought his soul. I don't need your charity, he said, pride flaring uselessly. Good, she almost smiled. Because I'm not offering any. This is business. Fair business. More fair than you probably deserve, but fair nonetheless. The meeting continued. More legal language. More signatures needed. At some point, they took a break. The room emptied except for them. 2 people who used to be everything to each other, now separated by success, neither of them could have imagined 7 years ago. Why? He asked into the silence. Why buy my company? You could have bought anything. Why this? She considered the question. Looked out the window at Lagos, spreading beneath them, chaotic and beautiful and unforgiving. Because it has good bones, good infrastructure, good people you've neglected. I saw potential worth saving, or revenge worth taking. Revenge is expensive, Desmond, and I've learned to spend my resources wisely. She turned to him. Do you remember what you said to me that night in the car? He remembered everything. Wished he didn't. You said we'd outgrown each other, that I wasn't compatible with your vision anymore. Her eyes were dry, but her voice carried old pain. You were right. We had outgrown each other, but not in the way you thought. Zara, I was an idiot. I was arrogant, cruel, blinded by ambition. She said it matter-of-factly, like reading a grocery list. Yes, you were all those things, but you were also scared, terrified of being poor again. So terrified, you turned into the kind of person who measures worth in bank accounts and social status. And you're different now? Yes, simple, certain. Because I learned that being poor doesn't make you worthless. Being rich doesn't make you valuable. What makes you matter is how you treat people when you have the power to hurt them. She paused. You had that power over me. And you chose to hurt me. I have that power over you now, and I'm choosing differently. The simplicity of it devastated him. No dramatic speech, no tears, just a woman who'd learned to be better than the person who'd broken her. Please, he whispered, hating himself for begging. Zara, please don't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. Her voice was gentle, sad. I'm doing this for the people you forgot. The workers, the families, the community that depended on this company before you turned it into an ego project. She gathered her papers, prepared to leave. You taught me an important lesson, Desmond. You taught me that love isn't enough without respect. That partnership means nothing without equality. That success is poison when it costs you your humanity. I know that now. I see it now. I'm glad. Growth is important. She stood. But understanding consequences doesn't erase them. It just helps you do better next time. Next time, he laughed bitterly. There won't be a next time. You were it for me. I know. And in those two words, he heard everything she didn't say. That he was it for her too, once. That she'd loved him with the kind of love that sustains, that forgives, that endures, until it couldn't. The room filled again. Signatures. Handshakes. It was over. 30 minutes and his company belonged to his ex-wife. His pride, his empire, his identity, transferred with legal efficiency and zero ceremony. As the teams filed out, he caught her arm gently. What happens now? She looked at his hand until he removed it. Now? You figure out who you are when no one's watching. When you're not performing success or managing image, you find out if there's anything left of the man I fell in love with, or if ambition killed him completely. And you? I keep building, keep growing, keep trying to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to others. She adjusted her bag. That's the difference between us, Desmond. You climbed on top of people to feel tall. I'm building platforms so others can climb. She walked toward the exit, paused at the doorway. One more thing. The unpaid salaries, they'll be settled by Monday, all of them. With interest. He stared. That's over 2 million naira. I know what it costs. She met his eyes one last time. I also know what it costs when people who depend on you don't get paid. When they can't feed their families because someone decided image matters more than integrity. Consider it a lesson in what real wealth looks like. Then she was gone, heels clicking away, taking with her everything he'd wanted and everything he'd lost. The acquisition closed Monday morning. By afternoon, headlines celebrated Aurora Pay's expansion. By evening, reports emerged that all Desmond Group workers had received back pay, full benefits, and retention bonuses. Social media went wild. CEO Queen. Compassionate capitalism. How to end your ex the right way. Think pieces multiplied. Zara's face was everywhere. She granted one interview. Brief. Professional. What's your message to other entrepreneurs facing challenges? Remember why you started. Remember who helped you get there. And never, ever let success make you cruel. And to your ex-husband? She smiled softly. Not vindictive. Not triumphant. Just sad. I hope he finds peace. And I hope he learns that you can't build an empire on the hearts you break. The interviewer pushed. Do you regret the marriage? I regret how it ended, but not the love I gave. Loving someone fully, even when they can't love you back, teaches you the kind of strength that no amount of money can buy. I wouldn't be here without that lesson. The clip went viral, comments section exploded. But Zara was already moving on to her next project, financial literacy programs for market women in Oshodi. The same market where she used to teach before Desmond's shame drove her away. Full circle, but different. Stronger. Free. Desmond watched the interview alone in his now empty office. Not his office anymore. Just a room he was being allowed to occupy until transition completed. Everything that mattered was already gone. His phone rang. His mother. Are you okay? Was he? He'd lost everything. Company. Pride. The woman who'd loved him when he had nothing. But somehow, for the first time in years, he could breathe. No, Mom. But I think I need to not be okay for a while. I think I need to sit with what I've done. Good boy, she sounded relieved. That's the first smart thing you've said in years. What will you do? I don't know. Learn, maybe. Actually learn this time. Not just how to make money, but how to be human while doing it. And Zara? She's gone. Really gone. Not just physically. She's become someone I don't have the right to reach anymore. Maybe that's your real lesson. Learning to live with consequences. Maybe. Probably. Definitely. He sat in that empty office until the security guard came to lock up. Then he drove through the Lagos traffic, the city that had promised him everything and delivered exactly what he deserved. 3 weeks later, as the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in colors too beautiful for a city so chaotic, Zara stood outside Aurora Pay headquarters, her headquarters now, reviewing plans for expansion into Ghana and Kenya. She heard footsteps behind her, turned. Desmond stood there, looking smaller somehow, not physically, spiritually, like he'd finally stopped trying to take up more space than he deserved. "I'm not here to beg," he said immediately, "or apologize again. You don't need my apologies." "Then why are you here?" "To say thank you. For the workers. For not destroying me when you could have. For being better than I ever was." She nodded, waited. "And to ask, not for us, not for anything, just to ask, how did you do it? How did you not become bitter? How did you build something beautiful after I tried to break you?" She considered him. This man she'd loved. This stranger who'd hurt her. "I learned that my worth wasn't tied to how you saw me. That my value existed independent of your validation. And once I understood that, really understood it, nothing could stop me. I wish I'd known that. Wish I'd seen you clearly when it mattered. You see me now. Too late?" "Yes." She wasn't cruel saying it, just honest. "Too late for us, but not too late for you to become someone different, someone better. I don't expect forgiveness." "Good, because forgiveness isn't about you. It's about me releasing the weight of your choices so I can move forward freely. I forgave you months ago, Desmond, not because you deserved it, because I deserved peace." He nodded slowly, understanding perhaps for the first time that her healing had nothing to do with him at all. "Goodbye, Zara." "Goodbye?" He turned to leave but stopped. "Can I ask, did you ever love me? Really? Or was I just a project to you?" She looked at him for a long moment. "I loved you more than I loved myself. That was the problem. I gave you all of me, and you traded it for all of nothing." Her voice softened. "But yes, I loved you. Past tense. Fully. Completely. The kind of love that doesn't come twice. I'm sorry I didn't treasure it. So am I." This time when he turned, she let him go. Watched him walk to his modest car. Not the luxury vehicle from before, but something practical, something humble. Watched him drive away into Lagos traffic, just another person in a city of 20 million trying to figure out who they were. She felt nothing but relief, and maybe, buried deep, a whisper of sadness for who they could have been if he'd chosen differently. Her phone buzzed. Her team, the Ghana partnership, was confirmed. Kenya negotiations moving forward. Aurora Pay was changing lives across the continent. She had work to do, purpose to fulfill, a legacy to build that had nothing to do with being someone's ex-wife and everything to do with being herself. Zara walked back inside her building, her empire, her future. The Lagos sunset painted everything gold behind her. In another part of the city, Desmond sat in his car and cried, not for what he'd lost, but for what he'd thrown away when he'd had everything. A lesson learned too late, a price paid in full. 6 months later, news broke that Desmond had enrolled in a social entrepreneurship program. Small story, back pages. No one cared much. He was yesterday's headline, forgotten as Lagos moved on to newer scandals, fresher dramas. But Zara saw it, read the article, allowed herself the smallest smile. Maybe he was learning after all. Maybe his fall would lead to something genuine. She hoped so, not for herself, but because the world had enough broken people creating more brokenness. It needed people who'd learned from their mistakes, who'd chosen to rebuild themselves with integrity. She closed the article, returned to her work, to the vision of Africa interconnected, financially included, dignity restored one transaction at a time. Someone once told her she'd never amount to anything without him. She'd proven them wrong in the most comprehensive way possible. Not through revenge, through becoming so brilliantly, completely herself that his opinion ceased to matter entirely.